What if the difference between someone thriving in their 80s and someone struggling just to get through the day isn't written in their genes at all? What if it comes down to something they do every single morning without even thinking about it? Two people, same age, similar diets, similar lifestyles. Yet by the time they reach their 70s or 80s, their bodies tell completely different stories. One is active, mentally sharp, resilient. The other is dealing with fatigue, chronic illness, and slow recovery. Most people assume the explanation must be genetics, or luck, or access to better healthcare. But that assumption misses something far more powerful and far more controllable. Because the real difference often begins at the cellular level, specifically, whether or not their body is actively using one of its most important internal systems, their stem cell network. The system almost no one talks about. Inside your body right now, there's an entire repair system quietly waiting on standby. Not theoretical, not experimental. Real, measurable, and active. Your stem cells. Think of them as your body's built-in maintenance crew. They live in your bone marrow, your fat tissue, your blood vessels, even your gut lining. And their job is simple but critical. They repair damage. They replace worn-out cells. They restore function. Every time your body experiences stress, whether from aging, inflammation, or daily wear and tear, these cells are supposed to mobilize, travel through your bloodstream, and begin repair work. That's how your body maintains itself. That's how you stay resilient. That's how recovery stays fast. So why does everything slow down with age? Here's the part most people never hear. As you get older, your stem cells don't disappear. They're still there. The problem is they stop responding. Imagine a city with a full maintenance crew, but a broken communication system. The workers are ready. The tools are available, but the signals telling them where to go never arrive clearly. That's exactly what happens inside your body. Chronic low-grade inflammation caused by stress, poor diet, lack of sleep, environmental exposure creates constant background noise. And in that noise, your body's repair signals get lost. So instead of rapid response and regeneration, you get slower healing, reduced energy, declining resilience, accumulated damage. Not because your body can't repair itself, but because it's no longer being properly instructed to do so. Here's where it gets interesting. For decades, researchers have been trying to answer one question. Why do some people seem to resist this decline? Why do certain individuals maintain strength, clarity, and vitality far beyond what we expect? And after years of observation, clinical data, and long-term studies, a surprising pattern emerged. It wasn't expensive treatments. It wasn't rare supplements. It wasn't anything locked behind prescriptions. In many cases, it was something sitting on their kitchen counter, something they used every morning. The overlooked power of your morning coffee. Now, before you dismiss this as just another coffee is good for you claim, pause. Because that's not what this is about. Coffee, as most people drink it, delivers only a fraction of its biological potential. In fact, conventional preparation methods strip away many of the compounds responsible for its most powerful effects before the cup even reaches your lips. Which means most people are unknowingly doing this wrong. Completely wrong. But when coffee is prepared correctly, it becomes something very different. Not just a stimulant, not just a habit, but a biological signal. A signal that can reactivate dormant stem cells, support your body's repair systems, strengthen internal surveillance against abnormal cells, and possibly even help your body contain threats before they ever become dangerous. The part most people miss. This isn't about drinking more coffee. In fact, more isn't the answer at all. Because the real impact comes from how it's prepared, what's preserved during brewing, and what's unintentionally destroyed. Most people focus on caffeine, but caffeine isn't the main player here. The real power lies in a group of compounds called polyphenols, especially one category that interacts directly with your stem cells. And depending on how your coffee is prepared, you may be getting only 20% of those compounds, or nearly the full biological effect. Same drink, completely different outcome. And this is where everything changes. Because once you understand this, your morning routine stops being passive. It becomes intentional. It becomes strategic. It becomes one of the simplest ways to influence how your body ages every single day. Right now, without any symptoms, without any warning, there is a high probability that your body contains abnormal cells. Not someday, not in the future. Right now. That might sound alarming at first, but here's the truth most people never hear. This is completely normal. Your body is constantly producing cells, trillions of them. And every time a cell divides, there's a chance for small errors in DNA replication. Most of these errors are harmless. Some are not. The reality no one talks about. At any given time, tiny clusters of abnormal cells can exist quietly inside your body. They don't cause pain. They don't show up on scans. They don't trigger symptoms. And in most cases, they never become a problem. Why? Because your body has built-in systems designed to contain them. The point of no return problem. Here's the critical detail. A microscopic cluster of abnormal cells cannot grow beyond a certain size, roughly the tip of a ballpoint pen, unless it solves one very specific problem. It needs its own blood supply. Without blood flow, it has no access to oxygen or nutrients. It can't expand. It can't spread. It simply sits there, contained. Think of it like a tiny fire surrounded by stone. No fuel, no oxygen, no growth. The dangerous shift. But if that cluster manages to send the right signals, everything changes. It begins recruiting blood vessels toward itself. This process is known as angiogenesis, the formation of new blood vessels. And once that connection is established, growth is no longer limited. In fact, research has shown that once a cluster connects to a blood supply, it can expand thousands of times in size in a relatively short period. That's the moment where something small and harmless becomes something serious. Your body has a defense system for this. Now here's the part most people never hear. Your body already has mechanisms in place to prevent this from happening. Think of it like a regulatory system, a kind of internal approval authority that decides when new blood vessels should and should not be formed. In healthy conditions, this system works incredibly well. It allows blood vessel growth when needed, like during healing, and blocks it when it's not appropriate, like in abnormal cell clusters. So what goes wrong? The issue isn't that your body lacks protection. The issue is that this protection can be weakened. Over time, factors like chronic inflammation, poor dietary patterns, blood sugar instability, environmental stress begin to interfere with this regulatory system. The signals become distorted, and when that happens, abnormal cells can slip through the cracks. They begin receiving the very support your body was supposed to deny them. And this is where your daily habits matter. Because the strength of this system is not fixed, it's influenced daily by what you eat, how you sleep, how your body processes inflammation, and surprisingly, by something as simple as your morning coffee. Coffee, more than just energy. When most people think about coffee, they think about caffeine, energy, focus, alertness. But that's only a small part of the story. Inside coffee, when properly prepared, are compounds that interact directly with the very system responsible for controlling blood vessel formation. Instead of shutting it down completely, which would be dangerous, these compounds act like a dimmer switch. They help regulate the signal, reducing unnecessary activation, while still allowing normal healing processes to occur. Why this matters more than you think? Because the goal isn't to eliminate risk entirely. That's not how biology works. The goal is to maintain control, to keep potentially harmful processes in check before they escalate. And this is where consistency becomes critical. Because these regulatory effects don't come from a single dose. They come from repeated, daily exposure. Small signals, reinforcing stability over time. But there's a catch. Most people are unknowingly reducing these effects every single day. Not because they're doing something extreme, but because of small common habits that interfere with how these compounds work inside the body. Habits that seem harmless, but quietly weaken the very systems meant to protect them. And this is where it gets even more important. Because this isn't just about controlling abnormal growth. There's another layer to this process. One that directly affects how your body handles inflammation, something that influences everything from aging to immune function. And at the center of that layer is a master switch most people have never heard of. In the next part, we're going to break down that switch. how it controls your body's internal environment, and how your daily routine, especially your morning coffee, can either keep it balanced or leave it stuck in a state that slowly works against you. If there's one system inside your body that quietly determines how fast you age, how well you recover, and how effectively you defend against disease, it's not your metabolism. It's not your hormones. It's your inflammatory control system. And at the center of that system is something most people have never heard of. A molecular switch that decides whether your body is in repair mode or constant stress mode. The master control you never feel working. Inside your cells exists a protein complex that acts like an internal alarm system. Its job is simple. When your body detects a threat like infection, injury, or damage, it flips on. It sends out signals, activates immune cells, triggers inflammation. This is a good thing. In fact, it's essential. Without it, your body wouldn't be able to respond to real danger. So what's the problem? The problem is, this system was designed to turn on temporarily, then turn off. But in modern life, for many people, it never fully shuts down. The always-on state. Think about it. Your body today is constantly exposed to processed foods, blood sugar spikes, poor sleep cycles, environmental toxins, chronic psychological stress. Each one of these triggers low-level activation of your internal alarm system. Individually, they're manageable, but together, they create a constant background signal, like a fire alarm that never stops ringing. Why this is dangerous? When this inflammatory switch stays activated long-term, two critical things begin to happen. 1. Your repair systems become less effective. Your body is designed to alternate between damage, response, and repair. But if it's always stuck in response mode, repair gets delayed. Stem cells don't mobilize properly. Tissue regeneration slows down. Recovery takes longer. 2. Your internal environment becomes permissive to problems. Chronic inflammation creates conditions where abnormal cells are more likely to survive and less likely to be eliminated. It weakens your body's natural surveillance system. So instead of identifying and clearing damaged or dysfunctional cells early, your system becomes slower, less precise. This is where most people get it wrong. They assume aging is simply time passing. But in reality, a large part of what we experience as aging is actually the result of unresolved, low-grade inflammation. It's not just years adding up. It's signals staying active, longer than they should. And here's where it connects back to your morning routine. Because certain compounds, when consistently introduced into your system, can help regulate this inflammatory switch. Not suppress it completely, but bring it back into balance. And one of the most consistent sources of these compounds is properly prepared coffee. The overlooked mechanism. When coffee is prepared in a way that preserves its active compounds, it delivers specific molecules that interact directly with this inflammatory pathway. These compounds help interrupt excessive signaling. They reduce the background noise. And when that noise drops, something important happens. Your body can finally hear the real signals again. Why that matters? Because once the system quiets down, stem cells respond more effectively. Immune cells become more precise. Repair signals become clearer. Instead of chaos, you get coordination. Instead of constant stress, you return to controlled response. But this only happens under the right conditions. Here's the critical part most people miss. This effect depends heavily on whether those compounds are actually preserved and absorbed. And for many people, they aren't. Not because the coffee's missing them, but because preparation and combination choices interfere with how the body uses them. Small habits, big impact. Things like overheating during brewing, using the wrong type of roast, adding certain ingredients afterward, can significantly reduce the availability of these compounds, meaning the signal your body receives is weaker, or in some cases, almost non-existent. So even though you're drinking coffee daily, you might not be getting the effect you think you are. You're getting stimulation, but not regulation. You're getting energy, but not cellular support. And this leads to the next layer of the problem. Because even if you restore stem cell activation, blood vessel regulation, inflammatory balance, there's still another factor that determines how well your cells actually function over time. a process happening inside each cell that decides whether it stays efficient or slowly breaks down. It's your body's internal cleanup system. And when it slows down, everything else begins to suffer. There's a process happening inside your body right now, one that almost no one thinks about, yet it quietly determines how well your cells function, how much energy you have, and how quickly your body declines with age. It's not about what your cells build. It's about what they remove. Because inside every cell, damage is constantly accumulating. Worn-out components, defective energy units, fragments that no longer function the way they should. And if those damaged parts aren't cleared out efficiently, they don't just sit there harmlessly. They begin to interfere with everything. The hidden problem inside your cells. Think of each cell like a highly efficient machine. Now imagine that machine running every single day, without ever being cleaned. At first, everything works fine, but over time, residue builds up, efficiency drops, errors increase, performance declines. Eventually, the machine still runs, but not at full capacity. That's exactly what happens inside your body. Your built-in cleaning system. To prevent this, your body has a specialized process designed to identify and remove damaged internal components, especially defective mitochondria, the structures responsible for producing energy. This process acts like a quality control system. It scans, identifies faults, breaks down what no longer works, and clears it out before it causes bigger problems. When this system is functioning well, your cells stay efficient. Your energy production remains stable. Your tissues maintain higher quality. But here's what happens with age. Just like your stem cell signaling and inflammation control, this cleanup process also slows down over time. Not because it disappears, but because it becomes less active, less consistent, less responsive. And when that happens, damaged components accumulate. Cellular efficiency drops. Energy production becomes unstable. Dysfunction begins to spread. This doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually, quietly, until one day the effects become noticeable. Why this matters more than you think? Because this process doesn't just affect individual cells. It affects the quality of everything your body produces, including your stem cells. If your stem cells are operating in a dirty internal environment, they don't function at their best. Instead of producing strong, healthy repair cells, they begin producing lower quality replacements. Which means even when repair happens, it's not optimal. This is where the real shift happens. Because now you're not just dealing with reduced repair, you're dealing with declining repair quality. And over time, that compounds. Here's the part that changes everything. Research has shown that certain compounds, when introduced consistently, can help reactivate this internal cleanup system. Not artificially, not forcefully, but by supporting the signals that tell your cells, it's time to clean house. And one of the most consistent sources of these signals is found in properly prepared coffee. More than just a morning boost. When coffee is prepared in a way that preserves its full compound profile, it doesn't just stimulate your brain. It interacts with your cells. It helps trigger processes that encourage removal of damaged components, maintenance of mitochondrial quality, improve cellular efficiency. And when this cleanup system stays active, everything downstream improves. The compounding effect. Now think about what happens when you combine this with the mechanisms we've already covered. Stem cells begin responding again. Blood vessel growth stays regulated. Inflammation is kept under control. And now, cells stay clean and efficient. Individually, each of these matters. But together, they create a completely different results immediately, within days, sometimes even hours. But biology doesn't work that way. These processes operate on longer timelines. Weeks of consistent input, gradual recalibration, accumulated improvements. At first, you may not feel anything dramatic. But beneath the surface, your cells are responding. Your systems are adjusting. Your body is shifting back toward balance. And this leads us to the most practical part of all. Because understanding the science is one thing, but applying it correctly is what actually creates results. And this is where small details make a massive difference. Because even if you're drinking coffee every day, if it's not prepared the right way, you could be destroying key compounds, blocking absorption, reducing effectiveness significantly, without even realizing it. Now that you understand the biology, this is where everything becomes practical. Because knowing what coffee can do is one thing, but getting those benefits, that depends entirely on how you prepare it. And this is where most people unknowingly cancel out the very compounds they're trying to benefit from. Not because they're careless, but because no one ever explained the details that actually matter. Step 1. The roast level that changes everything. If there's one change that delivers the biggest impact immediately, it's this. Stop using dark roast coffee. This goes against what most people believe. Stronger taste feels like it should mean stronger effect. But biologically, the opposite is true. The compounds responsible for stem cell signaling, especially chlorogenic acids, are highly sensitive to heat. The longer and darker the roast, the more those compounds break down, which means by the time dark roast reaches your cup, a significant portion of what makes it biologically valuable is already gone. What you should use instead, choose light or medium roast. Yes, the flavor is slightly more acidic, less bitter. But that smooth bitterness most people associate with strong coffee, that's often a sign those beneficial compounds have been oxidized. So this single switch from dark to light or medium roast isn't just a preference change. It's a biological upgrade. Step 2. Temperature. The detail almost everyone ignores. Water temperature matters more than most people realize. If the water is too hot, you start degrading the very compounds you're trying to extract. The ideal range is 195 to 205 grado Fahrenheit, 90-96 grado Celsius. If you're boiling water, let it sit for about 60-90 seconds before pouring. This small pause protects the structure of the polyphenols and keeps them intact. Step 3. Add one ingredient that changes the signal. Next comes something most people either overlook or do incorrectly. Cinnamon. But not just any cinnamon. You want Ceylon cinnamon, often labeled as true cinnamon. Here's why this matters. Ceylon cinnamon contains compounds that work synergistically with coffee's polyphenols, meaning they don't just add benefit, they amplify the effect. They help improve how your stem cell receptors respond to the signal. Why most cinnamon doesn't work the same. The common cinnamon found in most stores is cassia cinnamon. It lacks the same compound profile. And when used daily in higher amounts, it contains substances that may not be ideal long-term. So this isn't just about adding flavor, it's about choosing the right version. Step 4. The unexpected addition that enhances the effect. Now here's where it gets more interesting. Adding a small amount of lion's mane mushroom powder can further support the system. This ingredient contains compounds studied for their role in supporting nerve growth, enhancing cellular signaling, complementing stem cell activity. At the right amount, about 1/4 teaspoon, it blends easily into coffee and doesn't noticeably affect the taste. But biologically, it adds another layer of support. Step 5. The smallest ingredient with a big impact. Now, something most people would never think to add. A tiny pinch of black pepper, roughly 1/16 of a teaspoon. You won't taste it, but it plays a very specific role. Black pepper contains a compound that helps increase the absorption of other beneficial compounds. Think of it as improving how efficiently your body uses what's already in the cup. Without it, you may still get benefits, but not at full potential. Step 6. The one mistake that cancels everything out. This is the part that surprises most people. Adding milk or cream, especially dairy, can significantly reduce how much of these compounds your body absorbs. Certain proteins in dairy bind to polyphenols in the digestive system. Step 8. The final step most people skip. After your coffee, drink about 8 ounces of water. Coffee has a mild dehydrating effect, and even slight dehydration can reduce circulation efficiency, which matters because your stem cells travel through your bloodstream. Better circulation means better delivery. And now, the bigger picture. Individually, each step may seem small, but together, they create a completely different biological signal. Same coffee, different outcome. But even with perfect preparation, there's still one factor that determines everything. Consistency. Because these effects don't come from doing this once or occasionally. They come from showing up daily, reinforcing the signal, allowing your body to recalibrate over time. Here's the truth most people don't want to hear. It's not the method that fails. It's the lack of consistency. People try this for a few days, maybe a week, don't feel anything dramatic, and stop. But your body doesn't change overnight. These systems, stem cell activity, inflammation control, cellular cleanup, work on 8 to 16-week timelines. The shift is gradual, quiet, invisible at first. But it's happening. The most common mistakes. Going back to dark roast. Adding dairy just this once. Loading coffee with sugar. Skipping days and expecting results. Each one weakens the signal, and weak signals don't create lasting change. The right way to think about this. This isn't a quick fix. It's a daily instruction you give your body. A signal that says, repair, regulate, restore. And over time, your body listens. If you're serious about your long-term health, start tomorrow morning. Stay consistent. And if this helped you, share it with someone who needs it and follow for more science-based insights.